By the evening of January 26, 1952, Cairo was a city of pillars and ash. Over 300 buildings were burning, including the world-famous Shepherd's Hotel, a landmark of foreign luxury, reduced to a hollow, smoking shell in a matter of hours. The event was widely attributed to the anger of the street. After British forces massacred 50 Egyptian police officers in Ismailia the day before, thousands of furious students and workers flooded the capital, seemingly venting a blind, spontaneous fury on the city. However, as the fire spread, observers noted specific patterns. Organized teams arrived in cars, carrying specialized incendiary tools. They struck cinemas, banks, and hotels, with a coordination that allowed them to ignite dozens of targets across the city simultaneously. Evidence of foreknowledge appeared within the high-ranking British command. General George Erskine, the commander in the Suez zone, had reportedly issued private warnings to his English friends in the city, advising them to leave Cairo days before the first fire was lit. Even the Egyptian leadership seemed to step aside. At the exact moment the fires broke out, King Farouk was hosting a massive lunch banquet for hundreds of senior military and police officers, a move that effectively paralyzed the security response while the city burned. When an English general predicts the chaos and the king distracts the police, the narrative of a simple riot begins to fray. To understand how these events were choreographed, we have to look at the specific maritime blockade threatening the survival of the British Empire in Egypt. In the months leading up to the fire, Prime Minister Mustafa al-Nahas and the nationalist Wafd government were locked in a direct confrontation with the British. They had moved beyond protests, legally revoking the treaties that allowed British troops to occupy the Suez Canal. Their most effective weapon was a maritime blockade. Egyptian patrol boats began intercepting and searching every British and Israeli cargo ship moving through their waters, seizing goods and delaying vital shipments. This map shows the specific geographic bottlenecks at the Suez Canal and the Gulf of Aqaba. These 2 points dictated the movement of nearly all regional trade, and by 1952, the Wafd government had tightened its grip on both. This wasn't a minor trade dispute, it was a strategic strangulation. British commercial interests were losing millions, and their ability to supply their military bases in the region was being methodically dismantled. The British needed to remove the Wafd government, but a direct military invasion of Cairo would likely trigger a full-scale war. They needed a way to force the king to fire his own prime minister. A manufactured security crisis provided the necessary loophole. If the city descended into a state of lawlessness that the Wafd government could not control, it would give King Farouk the constitutional cover to dismiss the nationalist leadership and restore order. Information about this plot began to leak. Dr. Mustafa el-Hafnawi, an Egyptian lawyer, received a late-night visit from an American journalist for the Herald Tribune, who had been embedded with British military officers. The journalist provided a specific warning. British operatives were planning to instigate targeted, violent riots against foreign-owned properties in Cairo to prove the Egyptian government was incapable of protecting the city. Hafnawi immediately took the tip to the foreign minister, and the 2 men rushed to meet the Minister of the Interior the following afternoon, presenting him with the details of the looming sabotage. The Interior Minister dismissed the warning entirely. He was confident that his security forces had total control of the capital, and he refused to believe that foreign operatives could move so freely under his watch. The minister's confidence was misplaced. British intelligence was operating through a network called the Brothers of Freedom, which claimed over 6,000 members across Egypt. These proxies were able to infiltrate legitimate aviation worker protests, using the genuine anger of the crowd as a shield for their specific arson targets. By ignoring actionable intelligence, the Egyptian leadership allowed a real nationalist grievance to be weaponized into the very crisis the British needed. The collapse was total. With Cairo burning and the police nowhere to be found, King Farouk used the chaos to justify his move. Before midnight on January 26th, he dismissed the Wafd government and declared martial law. The short-term goal was achieved. The British successfully installed a series of compliant puppet governments that were far less likely to challenge the canal treaties or maintain the maritime blockades. But the image of the city in flames, combined with the king's banquet, ended the illusion of the monarchy's competence. For the Egyptian public, it was clear that the palace was either complicit in the destruction or entirely powerless to stop it. To the nationalist officers in the army, the fire proved that Egypt could not be liberated from the outside while foreign agents were still capable of sabotaging the domestic front. The domestic system had to be completely rebuilt. This realization paved the way for the Free Officers movement. Exactly 6 months after the fire, they launched the July 23rd Revolution, removing the king and ending the era of British influence in Egypt for good. The Cairo Fire was a tactical victory that became a strategic disaster. By orchestrating a crisis to save their regional trade, the British ignited the very revolution that would sweep them out of Egypt forever.